Welcome to Let's Talk, and again tonight my guest is Sean Grimes, who is a medical doctor, and in this episode we're actually talking about film dust and European cinema. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the channel, click on the bell for notifications, follow, and thank you for watching. It's amazing because the film dust. I used to work in the BBC as an assistant film editor, and we were using Ektachrome, and I would get migraines like nobody's business, really bad headaches, all sorts of things. And then in the early 90s, I was working, going through some archive footage with a company, and we all had to wear masks, and I didn't realise it was because of the dust, the film dust. It was the film dust that was causing me the headaches and the migraines. So I didn't realise that as an assistant film editor I was actually allergic to the film dust.
Absolutely.
You know?
But it's a very chemical environment you're working in.
Yeah.
Do you remember, you may remember that UTV had a lot of old film and they wanted to get rid of it, but they just couldn't get rid of it. So they did some procedure to it and extracted all the silver from it. And made the little, for a period in the 70s and 80s, there was a little, like a cube with a spike coming out the top.
Yeah.
And that was made out of the stock, the film stock that they had. They just extracted the silver from it.
Yeah, because the chemical process of even black and white, you've got silver halide. So there is actually in the wash, there's the extractions taken from it. So you could actually collect that and do something with it. So, which is what most people don't. Now, of course, it's gone. It's all the gold that were in the chips that we now use, that everybody's after now. So, but again, so your medical, your science understanding sort of helped you, in that particular industry that you, or as a projectionist, you were doing stuff that was connected to your actual studies as well.
Mm-hmm. It worked. It all fitted together. It wasn't necessary to work as a projectionist, but it did help. The Maltese Cross that would flip across, so each time a movie, a frame would only stop for 25 frames per second, but the Maltese Cross would flip it twice, would sort of illuminate it twice, and that's our eye can't perceive that.
Absolutely.
And therefore you get this seamless movie footage happening in front of you where it's just one frame flashed twice, another frame flashed twice every 25 times a second. And that helped. I understood the physiology of it, I understood the science of it, I understood the physics of it. Still I had to make sure it worked. I had to start it properly, make sure everything went through. But I would be quite interested in politics and sociology and things like that, and one of the beauties of working in that cinema was that we were exposed to many, many different, at the time, Hollywood was sort of Bruce Willis, Sylvester Stallone at his worst. It was not necessarily great movies being produced by Hollywood, which is what the majority of the people who were offered movies in Northern Ireland, that's what they were being fed. Not the Queen's Film Theatre. We got to see things and hear things. We did our fair share of rubbish too, but we got to see some amazing movies and had some amazing experiences.
Well, I think when as a college student in the early 80s, we would have had a Wednesday afternoon where we would have seen Russian movies, the new wave German movies, the French movies. So we were getting a little bit more of the different culture of filmmaking than just the Hollywood narratives that were being sort of given to us, which again coloured the way that we looked at the world then. And again, I think Netflix, you mentioned Netflix, because there's a lot of Russian material, Russian television, and good quality stuff, you begin to see that the propaganda that we may have of the socialism and all that is not necessarily how Russians are today. There's a kind of right-wing sort of element to it, which is very fascinating. We've been watching a show called Detective Anna, which is set in the 1850s, or 1880s, sorry. and it would be closer to what you'd expect a Victorian type film to look like, made in Britain in the 50s or 60s. So there's a really interesting kind of way of looking at the world, and I think that today's media is restricting or trying to restrict how we look at things. But because we're being opened up to these other cultures, we're now beginning to sort of critically analyse, the world that we have. So how important would that have been in what you were seeing as a projectionist, and eventually as you then sort of found your career moving? You said you're interested in politics and sociology.
Always have. The 1980s, when I was a teenager, a very young person, were very, very political. You couldn't not be political. Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister. Ronald Reagan was the so-called leader of the free world, and we had lots going on. We had Chile. We just got rid of Franco. There were lots of political things going on in the world, and we were also acutely aware that the Third World War could break out at any moment. So everyone was political, and I was political, and it was a self-imposed moratorium on Hollywood. So lots of the movies from the mid-80s on that Hollywood produced, I quite simply didn't watch them because they were so terrible. They reflected the politics of the United States at the time. But in the midst of it, I missed some brilliant movies. But I did also miss out a lot on the rubbish, and only watched Australian movies, British movies, French movies, German movies, and missed little. And in fact, I would say I saw more, had a better view of the world and understanding of the world through that. Some very political movies. One of my favourite movies is Mate One. Mate One, John, I don't remember who directed it.
Well, it's actually interesting that
John Sayles.
John Sayles. Oh, right, John Sayles.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Mate One's an amazing movie. It's set in the Depression era, a bit like the Molly Maguires with Sean Connery, except it's a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah.
And the acting is absolutely amazing. Brilliant movie. And I got to see that numerous times through my job, and got paid to watch it each time.
Yes.
So the amazingness of having a brilliant movie and getting paid to watch it. It's highly political. Movies like that were movies that we saw regularly. Movies from people who would have been more feminist in orientation, people who would have been arguing against religion or arguing for religion, arguing against a political opinion or for a political opinion. Germinal, a French movie. It's a big French novel. I was completely unaware of it being science-based. But Gérard Depardieu, of course, is in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And these are amazing movies which I got to see. Also Apocalypse Now. Movies which are mainstream, but you wouldn't often have seen them in the cinema.
Yeah.
We got the opportunity to see them in the cinema. As a projectionist, however, you didn't get the opportunity like that because you were focused on the mechanics of the movie being shown. You could hear the dialogue, but because the machines were whirring and everything, you would miss subtleties. You'd miss subtle aspects of it. But you got the gist of it. But conversations that would be had after the movie, you didn't get to hear in the projection box. So I did miss that. I missed the analysis. I missed the conversations that would happen. By the time I'd be finished doing what I was doing in the projection box and go down to speak to some of my colleagues who were ushers or whatever, they all had gone home. So you quite often didn't get that analysis with friends or with colleagues that you may have had outside of that. So, but projectionists were paid significantly more than we were paid more per hour than the managers were getting paid.
Oh, right, okay.
Because we were in charge of the equipment and making sure everything worked well.
Yeah.
But
would there have been areas where you would have had the opportunity to explore some of the themes that you were seeing in the films? Would have been, obviously as a projectionist, your job role prohibited you from certain discussions in the cinema, but outside of the cinema, would there have been areas where you would have been able to explore some of the themes in the films?
Amongst my friends who I would have spent most of that part of my life, associating with, we were cinemaphiles. We were moviephiles, and we did actually 5 of us. All worked in the one cinema, and we just became friends. And to this day, are friends. We would get the opportunities, usually only at the weekend when we would get together from our normal day jobs and whatever. But yeah, we would have had the opportunity to discuss movies and consider movies, consider the impact of them. But it wasn't formal. I never did any formal discussions or didn't take part in any groups or anything like that.
Were there any sort of major influences on your life even before then? You know, people that would have influenced the way you thought about or encouraged you to discuss even politics, religion, any of those kind of things?
My family, my mother and father, were both very interested in politics and religion, and they were 2 subjects were never prohibited from being spoken about in our house as I was growing up. Again, growing up in the north of Ireland in the 1970s, it was a pretty appalling situation, and our family were political, so the conversations were had at the table, at the dinner table. People would visit in the evenings and they would discuss the situation as they saw it, and as a young boy listening in, I heard what they said and analysed what they said, agreed with some things, disagreed with others, as we all do. But yeah, I grew up in a very politically charged environment, both outside of my home and within my home. So I think the option of not being political was not given to me. But my politics would have been broadly left of centre, where I was growing up, the politics would have been broadly right of centre. So it was a little bit of conflict there, and I lost all sense of being religious in my teens, and that again separated me from the people amongst whom I was growing up. But certainly in the immediate locale, talking about religion, politics, movies, sociology, psychology wasn't done. Within my family it was done and was okay. And then when I went to university, at 18, all opportunities arose to speak to people who thought differently, who had different experiences, and that was pretty good. It was one of the best experiences of my life actually, with those early university days.
We have more on the way, so please subscribe to this channel and check out the link below if you'd consider becoming a patron to help us keep making more content. Thanks for watching.